If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or somebody who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin. Each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it is the property economist Adam Lawrence. We'll come to Adam in a second. Why should you watch this show? Well, the British are obsessed with the property market. Whenever the Land Registry produces some information, everyone's all over it. Problem is, they're looking at sales that were agreed 8, 9, 10 months ago. The Halifax and Nationwide, whenever they publish information, they're looking at sales that were agreed 2 or 3 months ago. We're looking at sales and house prices from last week. So if you want to know what's happening in the property market, then this show is for you. The show will last approximately an hour and a quarter long. And the first half of the show will be on the UK property market, where Adam and myself will analyse what's happening in the property market with regard to metrics like listings, price reductions, sales agreed, fall throughs, net sales, and other great metrics. We're about to decide what's happening and give our insight. The second half of the show is where we focus on a town or a city. This week, we are going to Hereford. So therefore, if you are an estate or letting agent in Hereford, you'll want to be watching that. Also, if you're an estate agent and you're suffering from not being called out to valuations, because let's be honest, that's absolutely awful. You know, you open up Rightmove every morning and there's the 3 you put on the market, the 1 you lost, and then the other 12 that you weren't even called out to. If you're suffering from that, or you're suffering from your competitors overvaluing or doing cheap fees, then you should probably join for us for the second half of the show, where all the other Hereford agents will be looking, because we're going to be using a piece of kit that can analyze how good an estate agent is and prove that you are a better agent. So if you're an agent, listen to the second half of the show as well. This week, I'm joined by Adam Lawrence. Adam Lawrence there's not many people in this country I look up to when it comes to property economics, but Adam is deep, really deep. He knows his onions and he blows my mind away. Thanks for joining me today, Adam.
Well, Chris, thanks for having me, and back at you in terms of the appreciation.
Bless you. So, you're very good. I mean, if people are impressed by you, how can they watch your content going forward? Just because I said it is deep stuff.
And so really I have a channel that's called Proponomics with Adam Lawrence. So Propoenomix, which is on YouTube, like yourself. Not quite at the heady heights of your followers just yet, but I'm working towards Mr. Watkin.
Bless you. Just keep checking that content out, and do follow Adam. I do, and as I said, it's very, very insightful. And not just looking at residential, you do a bit of commercial as well, and you're looking at the whole market. So do follow him. This week we're going to be looking at week 13. Can you believe it? We are a quarter of the way through the year. It doesn't seem 2 minutes since we were putting the Christmas tree up. Week 13, for the benefit of the viewers, is Monday the 30th of March, all the way through to include April, the 5th of April, which is Easter Sunday. And we will be comparing week 13 against other week 13s, and we will also be comparing the year-to-date figures going back to 2017. So without further ado, let us go and have a look at what's happening in the UK property market. So give me a thumbs up, Adam, if you can see the graphs. That's awesome. So what we normally do here, ladies and gentlemen, is I just spend a minute or so going through what's happening, and then we will, Adam can give us his thoughts. We always start with the listings, because without the listings, nothing else happens. And this week we are on 38,376. Which, when you compare to last week, is lower, because last week it was 40,300, and the week before 39,400. The week before that 39,700. So we've had a dip in listings. Year to date, our listings are 0.6% ahead of last year, 7.5% ahead of 24, 18.2% ahead of pre-COVID levels of 17, 18 and 19, and overall 12.9% ahead of the decade average. The average price of a property coming onto the market, 438,000, which is slightly lower than norms. Normally we're around that 440, 450 mark, and have been since the start of the year. We'll be looking at that in a bit more detail in a second. So, Adam, it all starts with listings. What's your thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, we have got to consider, of course, that we're talking about a week that included Good Friday, which I hope I'm not stealing your thunder by mentioning that one. So you would look at that and think, well, actually, there's still been a significant number of listings, realistically. We haven't seen the drop that we might have thought we might have done. Having said that, the agents will have been keen to fill the books for Easter weekend, where there would have been lots of browsing going on, of course, because not to start you off, Mr. Watkin, but a Boxing Day style promo on a smaller level might have been something that a few agents rustled up, especially as the weather's been improving a lot as well. So I think that looks pretty healthy in context of everything. From memory, I think we had a particularly late Easter last year, so last year's figures won't yet be catching up with Easter being processed over the next couple of stats shows. And look at all the extra listings there have been in the sort of post-COVID market, apart from anything else. They're certainly trying to sell them, although they're not always successful, as you correctly say. The single most mind-blowing stat I always read every week in what you produce, Chris, is the idea that we only sell about 53% of what we list, which I just find mind-blowing, really.
Right, let's break some of what Adam's doing. We are now entering the 4 or 5 week season of Easter and the 2 May bank holidays. And you can see here that the first dip is always the Easter. So you were absolutely right. In 2025, the Easter was late, so you can see the dip there. The year before, the dip was a week later, and because we're quite early this year on Easter. And you can see the different years, how it dips. What is particularly interesting is the level of that dip, in the fact that, last week it was 40,300, and it's only dropped by 2,000. The drops that we normally see when it comes to Easter are in the order of around 5,000 to 6,000. So the drop on listings is not as great as it usually is. Because look at the blue. Okay, so let's look at the orange line. Here we go. It was later. It was up at 41 and then dropped down to about 33. Well, so it's dropped even more there. The blue line, the darker blue line there, it was around 38 and she dropped down to around 32. Then we can go other years. There's the yellow line. It was around 34 and it dropped down to around 27. So I would have expected a drop. I would have expected listings to have been around that 32, 33,000 mark, but it hasn't. So that's an interesting start to the Easter drop, which we always expect. Let's see in a second what's happened to the sales, because it will be great fodder for the doom-mongers if it has dropped. Let's move on and look at price reductions. We've got the figures through, came through this morning, filming this on Tuesday, the 7th of April, and 13.2% of properties that were on the market last month in March were reduced in price. Last week, the number of price reductions was 20,048. Again, remembering that the numbers are lower because a lot of you were on holiday because it being Easter. Remember, it wasn't Easter we weren't at Easter yet. It was about 3 or 4 weeks away. So that number would be higher. Okay. But it was Easter here. So let's just bring up the numbers. The average price of a property being reduced, 403, which is in line with the medium term averages. Again, I'm going to come back to this. I say it every show. 13% of properties reduced. Is that enough? It's amazing how, and again, a fault, I hate the word fault, so I'm going to use the word cause. You have vendors who are emotionally attached to a price, and by very nature of the game, humans are greedy is the wrong word, but want to maximize, it's your biggest tax-free asset. And again, the job of the estate agent is not to sell the house, it's to squeeze as much equity out of the house for the homeowner on the next one. So I can see why, if one agent's saying 400 and two are saying 350, why you might be tempted because someone's promising you an extra 50 grand. But it's just, again, it doesn't seem much, does it? What do you think?
Well, I mean, the answer to your question, is it enough? It is no, ultimately. But the reason why it's not enough is because too much stuff is being over instructed in the first place. And if we look back to the sort of average price of what's coming on, it looks quite realistic at the moment. And that's partially because there's so much stock on the market that agents know if they're not bringing in relatively competitively priced stuff, then they're not going to sell it. And there's no point having more stuff in the books that's just new but overpriced, ultimately, apart from those who are maybe incentivized on just listing, let
How
alone.
dare you? Now you're going to say they have like 20 or 26-week contracts. So, because again, I find it absolutely fascinating that the person who put the house on the market goes into witness protection, as Stephen Brown says, and then leaves it to little Floss, who's been in the job 6 months, being paid minimum wage. Oh, we'll drop an extra 5 grand off, and they salami slice it off every week. Ladies and gentlemen, let's remember the stats. The house is not sold by the 12th week. It only has a 14.5% chance of actually shifting. Just no. And remember,
Always blows my mind, Chris. Always blows my mind.
And again, we roll this out all the time. If just one of you watching this takes note, if a house takes 25 days or less to achieve a sale, the chances of that sale subsequently making it all the way to exchange of contracts, so where the homeowner actually moves home and you get paid, is 19 out of 20, 94%. Yet if you take more than 100 days to find a buyer, the chances of that sale getting through to exchange go from 19 out of 20 to 11 out of 20, 56%. This is, I tell you what would cure that. A removal of sole agency agreements being longer than a certain period of time. I mean, I know you're not directly an agency, but you do talk to an awful lot. What do you think the longest sole agency agreement should be?
It's a great question. I mean, when I was directly involved in agency, what we would do is we would have no tie-in period because we were confident in what we were going to deliver. And we would always say, look, if you want to go, then absolutely go. Feel free to. What's the point? What does it achieve? And really, this comes down to consumer protection, really, Chris, doesn't it, ultimately? Because people aren't, we've done this, we do this day in, day out. It's our trade. Most people who come to the market, I think you've said before, they move perhaps 3 times in their lifetime if they've been lucky enough to buy a house in the first place. And it's an average of 20 odd years, although you tend to move a bit more when you're younger and then stay somewhere for quite a time. But either way, even if it's been 5, 6, 7 years, it's not something you do all the time. And you probably do need protecting from the sort of organisation that doesn't mind too much if it only sells 35 or 40% of what it lists. But no retail business could survive if it only sold. Imagine a supermarket that only sold 35% of what it puts on the shelves. It just wouldn't work, would it?
Hey, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. In London, the 5 biggest estate agents, 2 of them shift between 24 and 28% of the houses they list. You could say, how do they run a business model like that? Because they charge like wounded rhinos. Okay.
Unbelievable, though.
So what? Go on.
What's the longest it should be? I mean, personally, if you were going to ask me for a limit, 13 weeks would be plenty. Because what more do you need than 13 weeks? You've had a quarter at it. It is a slow-moving asset. You need people to see it. You need a bit of time. But I can't imagine what you can't have done in 13 weeks. Okay. That seems like a reasonable upper limit, if not shorter than that, Chris.
I'm an 8-week sort of guy.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Okay, again, anyone watching this, put your comments in the YouTube video. Tell us what you think the sole agency agreement should be, or tell us what you do at the moment. Okay, or what your competitors do. Please don't mention any names. You could just say large corporate or medium corporate or whatever independent they are. Right, let's move on. Sale agreed. So again, let's have a look. Well, properties have dropped. So we've had an 11.8% drop. And interestingly, Adam, I did post something on social media saying house price slump, 11.8% drop in sales. And then in tiny little writing at the bottom, I said, and it dropped 10.2 last year, 8.9 last year, and 17.2 or 17.1% in the Easter before. It always drops in Easter. But what is particularly interesting is that the drop is quite nice compared to normally. Normally the drops are a lot heavier. You know, they are in the order of around 6 or 7,000. This year we have dropped 3,000. So be chuffed to bits, ladies and gentlemen. It's not bad at all. And I'm looking at these. I think some of the percentages pre-COVID were a lot more than that. So percentage-wise, probably in the order of around at least 15 late teens. So I'm going to take 11.8. Yeah, really good. Gross sales year to date, 321,000, which, oh, hello, I don't know if that's cropped it. There we go. Which, we'll just pull up the stats, are 6.2% behind last year, 6.2% ahead of 2 years ago, 15.3% ahead of pre-COVID 17, 18, and 19. Let's just do that. The average price of a property selling is 357,000. So that's the final asking price before she went sale agreed. Again, can I just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, and we say this every week, the difference between the final asking price and what it's sold for is always between 0.9 and 1.3 below the final asking price. So you remember that on your comparables. When you say we don't know what it's sold for, you can quote me. Chris Watkin says they always sell between 0.9 and 1.3. I just take 1% off. It's a nice round number. So if we're comparing it, as I said, 23,300, which again is not bad at all. Remember, last year was not Easter. And some of these, as I said, we'll just remind ourselves, was there any, yeah, we had Easters in previous years, but the Easters do come a bit later. Remembering that we always have 3 dips, Easter and the 2 May bank holidays. Okay. It's not bad, is it? All things considering.
Still looks pretty healthy to me, to be honest with you. What's interesting, isn't it, is the price of the sale agreeds as well. There, look how stable that's been for 5 years there, pretty much.
Well,
I know we're only looking at 1 week at a time, but pretty steady sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and
so that
just evidenced by those listing prices being a bit more realistic.
So let's go here. The turquoise is week 13 as a standalone picture, and the average price of properties going sale to agreed. You can see in the turquoise there, it's been pretty static. Notice how the growth of properties coming onto the market has grown, which shows that. And again, we can put this in a slightly better way on this graph here, although this is only back to 23. Is that posher properties are coming onto the market more than they did pre-COVID levels. That's what that is telling me. The gap is 22.7. Long-term average is 16, 17%. Yeah, as I said, it's just things are moving on quite nicely. Now, will the things in Iran affect everything? We're filming this on Tuesday, the 7th of April. We don't know what's going to happen tonight, tomorrow, whatever. But this is what this is telling us, that so far so good. The market doesn't seem to be affected by what's happening in the Middle East. Worst case scenario, what do you think could happen?
Well, we've seen ultimately mortgage rates go up. That's the first order consequence for the average homeowner. So I think one of the great things about what you've done so far today, Chris, and what you do week in, week out, is that you provide context. Your 11.8% figure in the context of other Easters and all the rest of it, right? So that's so important. And context here, we've got recent context for when there's significant disturbance in the mortgage and the lending markets, right? We've got the famous 2022 budget, the Liz Truss situation, and all the rest of it. And you know yourself, as you often say, and I'm always referring to, 40% plus of fall throughs when that budget came through. The mortgage rates adjusted by about 2.25%, and actually a little bit more than that in the short term, very quickly during the time of that budget. At the moment, we've had an adjustment of around about more like 1%, which puts it into some context. We were seeing rates quoted at 6.25 and 6.5 for 2-year fixes at the time, whereas today we're more like at the sort of 4.75 to 5 kind of level for a 2-year fix. So that's your context ultimately. That's all. The market is already expecting and pricing in 3 rises in the base rate by the end of 2026 as we speak. So we're at 3.75. Last meeting, they voted to hold. The market thinks 4.5% by the end of the year. I'm not sure the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee members are on board with that quite yet. And that's going to change dramatically depending on, as you say, what happens tonight, what happens over the next week or two, whether Mr. Trump is going to find a way to extricate himself and the United States from this situation without too much egg on face, apart from anything else. So average mortgage payment may be going up £70 to £100 a month, something like that. Again, context in 2022, that was looking like going up £500 a month for people, because there was such a dramatic shift over that time. Because it wasn't just the rise there and then, it was the fact that rates had been rising anyway. We were in a slightly downward path environment from a relatively high level, and this has disturbed that for the moment. But this is the number I'm sort of throwing out there generally at the moment. This is about 20 to 25% of the magnitude of the 2022 budget and what happened in and around there, which was significant. But remember, what did we see? We saw a couple of 100,000 fewer transactions in 2023 than we might otherwise have done. And we saw the market ONS figures were down about 2.5%. So unfortunately, Chris, nothing for the doom mongers in there as usual. It's more a case of keeping calm and carrying on. But it's not going to help. There's no point pretending that it's going to help, but it's nowhere near as damaging as some might be making out.
Excellent, excellent. You can see why we invite him back every few months, ladies and gentlemen. The trust budget was in September 2022, which was around this sort of time. So this is net sales. This is gross sales less fall throughs. And you can see here that in terms of, we're looking more, this is the gap here of around 5,000 sales, net sales. And most of that was not, there were fewer sales coming into the pipeline, but there were a lot more coming out of the pipeline, being a lot more fall throughs. So again, we were having fall through rates of around 40%. What's that? That is total sales is one number. So let's say it's 100, and then there were 50 fall throughs or 40 fall throughs. So 40 as a percentage of the 100 is 40%. Hence why the fall through rate is mentioned 40%. Of what Adam's just mentioned. We're going to come on to fall throughs in a second, but you can see the effect there. So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, if things do go a little bit belly up in the Middle East, we will see more sales falling through, and we will have fewer sales coming into the pipeline. So you've got to have your A game on with regard to your chain management. Try and get these properties through. You'll be on to a winner. Okay.
Can I just add something on that, Chris, as well? Because I think probably that might be useful to some of the agents listening to this. Ultimately, if people have got a mortgage in principle that they've agreed 6 weeks ago, right, they should be holding on to that like gold dust at the moment, because that's in the money. They'll still be paying 3.75, 4% maybe. So that's a bigger reason to keep the chains together and keep the transaction flowing through, because if they need to go back to the market today, they're going to get told 4.75 to 5%.
Wise words. Right, let's get back. So this is quite a specialist graph. The red line with the yellow background is the percent. So if you start again, total listings is the blue bars, and then the red line is the percent sales as a percentage of listings. So therefore, if there were 100 listings and 80 sales, that is 80%. So 80 as a percentage. So that is there. So at the moment we're running around the late 60s, and the blue line is the number of listings coming on the market. We did have, as I said, quite a few listings in March. Resi sell-through rate, what percentage of your properties on the books did you actually shift? And just as I said, brand new figures is for March, 15.5%, which is very similar to what it was last month. So are you selling just under 1 in 6 of your stock? If you're below that, you're not doing as well as the national average. If you're above that, you're doing. What I would say is this, that number nationally, the further north you are, I would expect that number to be higher, and the further south, a little bit lower. Might be just wise just to look at stock levels as that just drops into my mind. Stock levels 716,943, which is a jump from last month, but in terms of the actual jump itself, it is very much in line with the rest of the Fed going into March. So remember that number there was the 31st of March going into the 1st of April. Okay, so we do a snapshot on that crossover there. And again, it doesn't look so good compared to these sort of levels, but remember 2008, where there was the global financial crash, that was between 1.2 and 1.4. So just bear that in mind. We might as well look at the sales pipelines, 453,000. This is new. Again, this is end of 31st of March going into the 1st of April. 453. Again, much 100,000 more than what's happening pre-COVID levels. And again, still taking on average around 19 weeks to get a sale through. Although interestingly, sale fall throughs are lower. We'll come on to that in a second. Well, it's a nice segue in. Let's go and have a look and see what sale fall throughs are doing. 4,921, which is a fall through rate of 21%. We had Brian Mansell on the show a few weeks ago, and he said that it's always low at this time of year because, again, a lot of the sales that are in your pipeline now are properties that the sale was agreed in the last 3 months. So if it's going to fall through, it tends to fall through at the back end of the sale, time-wise. There's the sale fall through, but again, it is lower. I think, and again, you can see here that it's a general trend down, which is really, really good to see. And then finally, we'll come on to Adam and his thoughts here. This is, I think, the most important number is what percentage of your sales pipeline did you fell through? And as I said, we are just around that 5.1%, which again, long term, that is dropping. Thoughts on sale fall throughs?
I mean, it's positive to see them dropping. You do wonder whether there's much correlation between it taking even longer for a sale to get there in the first place. I think I always look at this as ultimately provide the information up front in an honest way so that people don't get surprised. We've sold, hundreds of properties from our own portfolio, about 150 properties over the course of about the last 5 or 6 years. And we always meticulously declare. And for me, it's just about putting yourself in the mindset of the first-time buyer, because a lot of what we're selling is first-time buyer sort of stock, and answering the questions they might have before they ask them. So good objection handling, if you like. I do wonder whether the slightly more thorough conveyancing, is that one of the reasons? I don't know what you think about any of that, Chris, because we see this time taken to get to completion drift on and on and on and on. Well, I do see legal work being more extensive and robust these days, sometimes driven by the mortgage lender, admittedly.
What could it be? Well, there's quite a few thousand estate agents using reservation agreements, which again, I'm a massive fan of. Again, not everyone, but getting solicitors instructed, especially with leasehold properties, again, is another. Is there a fact that because the leasehold market, especially in London for flats, is pretty bad, is that they're the ones that could have had a higher propensity to fall through, and because they're not selling, there's less? I don't know. I haven't got the answer.
That's a very nuanced point, but there could be some truth in that, definitely. Yeah.
Could be. If you're a homeowner and you own a property, my advice to you would be, and even if the estate agent doesn't say, is get the solicitor instructed even before you put the house on the flat on the market. Get the pack, get the solicitor, get the contract sorted out. You'll be amazed how much such a difference that will be. Right, let's move on to net sales. What are net sales? Gross sales, less fall throughs in the week. 18,471. So again, sales are lower, which means net sales are going to be lower. In terms of year to date, 251,600, which is 6.7% below last year, 5.9% ahead of 24, 18.8% ahead of 23, and 12.3% ahead of pre-COVID levels in 17, 18, and 19. And again, we just put the graph here. And again, the drop is not as much, again, because sales haven't dropped so much. And again, we've got lower fall throughs. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's good. Still pretty steady numbers, and it shows you ultimately. I think if you put together a number of the graphs you've shown us today, the stuff that's going on is going on at slightly more realistic prices. The transactions are holding up; they're holding together. The number of transactions is healthy, and ultimately we're getting units over the line. And really, certainly from looking at the last month or so, the Iran situation so far has really not even caused much of a wobble in the market, particularly at the moment. So what does that tell us? Aside from the mortgage chat that we already had, it tells us that it isn't really informing people about not transacting because of the situation in the Middle East at the moment. It's not, but first time buyers are not finding it relevant, or buyers in general are not finding it relevant, and they're just getting on with it really and trying to move on.
I mean, interestingly, the UK is an importer of diesel. I mean, again, I found this out. This is fascinating. We're normally a 10p difference between unleaded and diesel, and then we're around 30p. I found out a big reason is that because we're a net exporter of unleaded and a net importer of diesel, and that's why it's costing a bit extra. So, I mean, what is particularly interesting is that probably only, again, single digits last year were diesel. So therefore, there's an awful lot of people out there with electric cars. So the issue with the fuel is not going to be so much of an issue for them. Good for them. Those of us that drive petrol or diesel, especially diesel cars, will have more of an issue. As the blind man says, we shall see what happens. Right, let's move on. A couple of extra bonus graphics. Price changes as a percentage of listings and gross sales as a percentage of listings. That takes the gross sale number for the standalone week and the listings standalone for the week, and the same with price changes, and just compares one with the other. Some people like to see that graph. Exchanges versus withdrawals. Again, this number will change because the numbers from 20EA have a 2 or 3 week delay. So the numbers that we're seeing for March are for the first part of March. So this numbers will change. Although interestingly, again, you mentioned this at the top of the show, the percentage hardly changes. So for the stuff that has come through, 52.6% of properties that left estate agents' books in March exchanged, and you got paid on, ladies and gentlemen, estate agents. The rest, the other 47.3, withdrew unsold. Yeah, not good, is it?
Unbelievable.
Okay, well, we won't repeat ourselves because we're at broken records. Pound per square foot. Now, I'm a bit of an outlier in the industry on this. I am a massive fan of the pound per square foot to measure the trajectory of house prices in the UK. Okay, the doesn't work so well on a town by town basis. Regionally, it's not bad at all, but nationally, it is almost perfect on the land registry 5 months in advance. Almost 92% correlation. Okay, so you follow that yellow line, and that will tell you what's going to happen to the land registry 5 months in advance in terms of its percentage change. So the wonderful thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, is we can tell if house prices are rising in advance, and we can tell the top of the market, and we can tell the bottom of the market. So if you're into your house prices, you follow that number. If anyone wants to pick my brains on that, just pick up the phone. My number's everywhere on social media. I've got graphs that I've overlaid that against the land registry, and it is absolutely wonderful. So almost, again, the red line is for pound per square foot of houses coming on the market. That gap is getting a bit big for my liking. But again, they'll be part of the 46.4%, not 46, 47.4%. That, okay, although that number will change. And then the exchange figure is a good one as well. But that is almost perfect on land registry within a 1 or 2 months gap. But I like to
Well, I think
probably
those
get.
last few months since the budget, because we had that late budget last year, was effectively December by the time the market sort of absorbed it, and a lot of more expensive stuff had been held off, hadn't it, Chris? So that drift upwards might just be those more expensive properties coming back on the market that have been held off for a while. But like you say, it looks a bit like this £50 a foot is a chasm, really, isn't it? Let's face it.
Well, there's always going to be a gap. It's the percentage gap. What is particularly interesting, ladies and gentlemen, is that the pound per square foot is not linear across all price ranges. So what you tend to find is that the lower price properties have a higher pound per square foot, and then the middle range pound per square foot drop off, and then the really posh ones. So it's a classic U shape. If you plotted pound per square foot against price band, it's a U shape. I just I just love the way must publish that graph. I did it a couple of years ago. It still holds true. Absolutely amazing. Couple of extra bonus graphs. Proportional split of sales on market versus sales pipeline. I know some of you like to see this. That's the raw numbers, and that is the proportional split. We've already done properties for sale and pipeline. Just finally, rental market. We've seen a dip here, although again, some of that bit there is always, if you can, is that bit there is your student market because it does up the average in October and November. But again, the rental is still quite sluggish, and again, that rents are driven. Some people are saying, "Oh, landlords have got more issues with the Renters' Rights Bill Act, sorry, so they're going to put their prices up." Rents follow tenants' wages with a 6 month gap with a 6 month delay. It always happens, and it has a correlation of around 80 or 90%. And a lot of this, again, I have done it. I haven't done a graph on it, but I have done it back in the fact packet. I would say an awful lot of this growth is because of the fantastic growth, or if you're an employer, not so much, of the minimum wage. Minimum wage has strongly affected the average rents because those on the minimum wage will have a higher propensity to privately rent. Their income levels have gone through the roof compared to when they were lower. And what's happened is that means that they have more money, which means rents have gone up. And yeah, I must do a graph on that one, but I have done it back of bag faggot, and it runs true. So will we see some more? Well, again, people are complaining about the minimum wage, those that are having to pay it. But it's what's the number? Here we are. Rent as a proportion of tenants' wages has hardly changed for over a decade at around 35%, give or take. Okay. What is also particularly interesting is that the mortgage payments as a percentage of take-home pay for mortgages is lower. Lower. Yeah. It's interesting. Right. Okay. So there you go. That's the end of the first part of the show. Anything you want to say, or you can save it to the end?
I think we've done some good work throughout there as we've gone along, Chris. So I think on rents, I think just to labour a point maybe that you've made a few times in the recent past, people often don't look at 10 years ago, and they don't look. The ONS only started their database on rents in 2005, unfortunately. But actually, since then, despite all this recent fuss about rents really moving along only as far as inflation has, rents are still lower. Rent inflation is still lower than CPI from 2015. And actually, people spend less of a percentage of their take home than they did in 2005 on rent. But of course, what we often lose sight of is, apart from anything else, in the people who are in the sub 50k earning bracket, which is majority of tenants outside of London, let's say, apart from anything else, are actually paying a lower marginal rate of tax today than they have done over the past 25 years. So they're keeping more of it and they're spending less of it on rent. But of course, you wouldn't believe that if you read the vast majority of the articles about recent rent rises and things like that.
You'd expect me to have a graph on this, wouldn't you? Hey!
Ta-da!
Okay, so rent CPI inflation since 2016 is 38%. Okay, so yes, there are some in the northwest who are paying more, and Scotland are paying more, as in South Western Wales, but those in London are paying less. To give you an idea, rents in a London are 12.4% less than inflation today compared to 2016.
There you go.
There you go. And in outer London, so inner London is SW, NWE, SE, and that bit. And outer London is everything else up to the 25 nearest what's name. And rents are cheaper. And again, this is where's the other graph I've got? There you go. You're actually seeing the Watkin workings here. Here we go. So I'll just pull this out. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is look at inner London. So everywhere else was pretty static through COVID. COVID being the second green one here, and then it slowly rose. But what happened in London is everyone left London, so the average rents dropped from around 2,700 down to 2,200. And then, so anyone who was renting in 21 has seen a stratospheric rise in average rents of around 40 or 50%. But if you were in the rentals in inner London pre-COVID, the net growth, and again, the devil's in the detail with the stats. And, this is why I implore estate agents and letting agents to be the voice of their property market, it's all very good seeing the bad news and the doom mongers with the headlines. Is what exactly happening in the property market? Because you'll get called out to more valuations if you do start chucking some of this stuff out. All the graphs, ladies and gentlemen, are available to download. If you go to YouTube, there's a link at the bottom. You can download them, and I've got no issue with you using them on your valuations. All I ask is that you don't post them on social media, because my daytime job is providing data from local agents with local data, and some of them do like to use this data, the national stuff, and it wouldn't be fair for you to use it if you weren't paying for it. But I've got no issue with you downloading this stuff. Right, okay, so that's the end of the first part of the show, Alan. I tell you what, let's go to Hereford now. Ladies and gentlemen, we are using a piece of kit called Insight. Insight is a bit like Rightmove Plus on steroids. It shows you data of how you're getting on in the market, but it also gives you data which enables you to use as a unique selling point when you're up against competitor agents. As I said, it's like Rightmove Plus, but on steroids. It's from a firm called 20EA, who are part of the 20CI group, who are known for their data. Insight is one of 20EA's platform. They have lots of other different platforms, but Insight is their property data platform. I must stress to you, I've not been paid in any way, shape, or form to highlight this bit of kit. They do give it to me again, I will declare, they do give it to me free of charge, which enables me to create the content you've seen in the first part of the show. With regard to agents having this, again, I'm happy to declare that I believe there is a free version where you give them your postcode and they give you the same data I'm going to show you, but only for the last 3 months, so you can have a play with it. There is a platform which the next one up is where you have up to 10 postcode districts. And the cost of that, I believe, is the cost of a decent takeaway with a couple of bottles of wine. Okay, so nothing silly. Then there's a regional one, and then there's the national one. And the only difference is how much of geography you go for. But it's 5 years plus the year that we are in. Let's have a little bit of a geek fest, Adam, because I know you and I do like our property data. And why is that important, ladies and gentlemen? Well, at the end of the day, are you just another agent, or are you the agent, the estate agent, the authority? And 36% of vendors who are, and this figure hardly changes every year when the Property Academy, or Leaders Inc as it's now called, do a survey of 10,000 vendors for the EA Masters, and 36% of vendors chose their estate agent based on the property market knowledge that that agent had. So therefore, if you're looking for an unfair advantage, then talking about the property market and what's happening is a tool to get you more called out to more estate agent more valuations, because again, let's remember this, ladies and gentlemen, estate agents all have three problems. Problem number one, you log on to Rightmove, you see the three that you put on yesterday, you saw the fourth one that you lost, but you never call out to the other 15. That's problem number one, being called out to the val. Problem number two, you get called out to the val, you're on the sofa, but you're losing it to overvaluing and cheap fees. This bit of kit, if you can read the data, then that will help you with that as well. And finally, is then getting the house sold. Problem number three is getting it sold. And what you can use this data, if you can extrapolate it to your advantage to help you with all those three problems, especially the first one. But without further ado, Adam, should we go and have a look?
Let's do that.
So we're going to Hereford, and Hereford, for the purposes of this, it's HR 1, 2, and 4. Okay. And what we're going to look at here is, again, just jump in at any time, mate, because I'll just keep rambling on. You know what I'm like. So what we've got here is, as I said, we are measuring we're measuring the last 5 years plus the year we're in. So for everyone's benefit, this is the first of the first 21 all the way through to yesterday. Well, no, I've actually moved that the 31st of March. When we're in the first week, I always ignore it because the figures go all over the place, especially for market share. Residential sales. We are not looking at new build properties, and we are, as I said, already done the postcode districts there. The measurements that you can have are new instructions, exchanges, fall throughs, price changes, relists, sold subject contracts, and withdrawals. Okay, and you can see here that the number of listings from 21 all the way through to 26, and again, we'll just pull that in a bit slightly, there you go, is that the listings have been growing month on month. So again, if we just hover over this here, 273 properties came onto the market in Hereford in March 26 compared to 189. So it'll be interesting to see what the stock levels are. We'll have a look at those in a second. New instructions. So again, I know all you agents, you love measuring things, especially the size of your market share. So let's go and have a look. So the average price of a property that's come onto the market in the last 5 and a bit years is £362,500. Okay, 11,671 properties have come onto the market. Let us go and have a look at Flint and Cook, who appear to be the dominant agent. And you can see here, Adam, that the average price is 332 compared to 362, which is in line with most. The number one volume agent does tend to be slightly below the average, and that is in line, as I said, national figures. There's only 2 locations in the UK where the dominant volume agent is well above, especially the upper quartile, the posh, your finer countries and your Savills sort of properties, and that's Exeter and a small town in Hertfordshire. But looks like they had a bad 21, and if you can have a bad 21 at 15%, 22 was a bit leaner, but it looks like they've pulled their socks up there, Adam, and are hovering around that 18 or 19% market share. Dominant agent, aren't they?
Yeah, very decent. Very decent when you think about how competitive it is, Chris.
Indeed. Let's next go down to Connell's, part of the Connell Secrets Group. And it looks like their market share appears to be slightly drifting.
That's where Flint and Cook are taking some of their listings from, by the looks of it, Chris.
Potentially. Let's go and have a look. Now, what you will always notice with Connell Secrets, and they are the big dominant corporate estate agent with multiple brands, is that you will see the Boxing Day spikes. Okay, so you can see there that they really got behind the Boxing Day promotion in December 24, and they did also in 23, 22. Obviously not in 21. I'd love to know what they were around that 5 to 10% mark. But it looks like they've had a rough couple of months there, which my thoughts are with you guys. And we're not here to criticize; we're just here to comment on the data. But it looks like you're having a slightly tougher few months recently. Okay, average price 258. So they're obviously. I like to use the supermarket analogy. So if you think about it, there are brands at the lower end, middle end, and top end. So we're talking more your Aldis and Lidls there in terms of what market they're going for and the types of properties they are. Let's go and look
Perhaps,
at.
perhaps, Chris, the point you made earlier on, perhaps they're listing more flats. I don't know what the penetration of flats is like in those postcode districts, but perhaps the flat market is something that they are more active in, and they're coming in at a cheaper price, but also they're struggling to sell at the moment.
Well, if you look, I've just switched on flats, 106 in 5 years. So really, again, good to bring it up, but you don't, in these provincial, especially out in the, Hereford is in the provinces. I come from Lincolnshire, so again, I can say that. So again, it looks like the flat market isn't particularly prevalent there. But it was good to ask. Right, coming in at equal second is Watkins Thomas. And again, we're going to like that because I've got the name there. Okay, Watkins is a good Welsh name, and of course you're on the Welsh borders there. Let's go and have a look. Decent. Looks like you've had a good 24 and 25 there. So again, have you been taking stuff off Connells? Interesting. Okay, let's move down to Jackson Property. So their market, all of a sudden, you see the average property price has gone up to 388. And again, nice and steady, holding your own. We will look at the upper quartile in a second. Andrew Morris, again, holding your own. Looks like you had a good 25. Average price 261. So again, going towards the Audis and Lidls and Tesco's of this world. Glasshouse Estates, quite spiky. Good month, bad month, good month. And again, quite a difference there. Feast and famine there. So compared to others, but again, you're at the 433. So again, it's going to be a bit like that because of the nature of the upper quartile. We will look at the upper quartile in a second, ladies and gentlemen. Chancellors. Oh dear, guys, you seem to be having a bad 25 going into 26. Probably you were at number 2 in Hereford in 22 and 23, and things have slipped. Hopefully, with the guidance and support of your new owners, you'll be able to get yourself back, because I do have a soft spot for Chancellors and its brand. Williams Estate Agents, 263. Again, seems to be like a two-step market here, like the posh, because again, 263, the gap between the average at 362 is huge. Where you don't see this. Okay, let's go. Stoke Hill and Walsh, 333. We'll just have a whiz down here and just see what's happening. There we go. So you can have a look. Okay, so Cobb Amos, drifting slightly. Looks like you had a really good 22. The Good Estate Agent. Looks like you're having a good 26. Well done, boys and girls. Brooks Bliss. Very spiky, but again, it's good. Oh, posh. There we go. Trivet Hicks. I'll go down to 20, and we'll let the figures do the talking.
They're obviously not huge numbers, some of them, Chris, so we have to be a bit careful with the conclusions we draw. But I'm finding the average per square foot, perhaps because we talked about that in part 1 as well, but I'm a big fan of the correlation, obviously, that you display and all of that. But there's quite a variance in some of those average per square foot prices.
There is, because remember, we said if you didn't watch that part of the show, please do go and watch the first part of the show if you've gone straight to this Hereford Agents. We talked about how pound per square foot is really high at the lower end. It drops a treat in the middle and then goes back up again for the posh stuff. Right, let's go and have a look and just see what's happening in the posh region. We'll go 500,000 and just see what's happening. Okay, so Flint and Cook are still moving and shaking quite well with 13% market share, although it looks like they're not as posh as it used to be. So what's happened, Flint and Cook, with the going for that upper quartile? Interesting. Let's
I wonder
go.
if we'll see that someone's taken a bite out of that as we get down the list a little bit there.
Glass House are having a really good 25 going into 26. Jackson's, Chancellors, Sunderland and Thompson's, we haven't seen them. 10%
Making
of the share.
progress.
Yeah. Posh. Good. That's what we like. Brooks Bliss. Oh, well, no, sorry, I'm going a bit too quick there. I've got to wait for the computer to catch up. Cobb Amos.
£905 a foot.
Again, they're really we're only looking at 5 a year, so
Yeah.
we've got to take it with a slight pinch of salt. we said we'd look at stock levels, so let's just have a look at stock levels. I'm just going to knock this back because we have to do whole months. And you can see here, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that in 21 there were 749 properties available to sell. Now it's nearly 1,200. So there is what let's just have a just I don't
About
want to.
70% more, Chris, something like that.
Well, that's what I was going to do it, but then I think to myself, I don't want to look at Pratt. 1189 divided by 749, 59% more stock for sale today than 2021. Okay. That is pretty in line with the national figures. Let's just have a quick look. We can just, I'll just have a quick look. So there we go, 716. So nationally, 716 divided by, and that was 21, 511, 40% more nationally. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's move on and to my favorite screen. This is going to sort the men out from the boys, or the girls out from the ladies. Okay. We're looking at there's some amazing data here, and it's the classic you can't see the wood for the trees. So let me go through what this means. This is the last 2 years in all price ranges. Immediately, this is for we'll start off with new instructions. It says this year, so this is March 25 to March 26. Jackson Properties new listings have grown from 6.28 in March 24-25 to March 25-26 by 19.5% proportionally. So you've gone from 6.28 to Jackson to 7.5. Glasshouse have grown. So who's dropped? Chancellors, we knew they'd dropped. Connells have dropped. Snook Hill have dropped. Flint and Cook, again, just seen a slight drop off there. So, what are these guys and girls doing here that some of these are not? So that's the first thing. We'll just have a quick look at the sales because, again, it might be interesting there. So Jackson's have had a growth. So this is amazing. Jackson's, your market share of sales has gone from 6% to 8.4, which is proportionally an increase of 41%. Who's suffering? Connells, Sunderland, Thompsons, and Chancellors. So again, but this is where let's go and look at the true magic. Okay, here we go. So we're not looking at new instructions or new instruction market share, and I don't want you to look at sale agreed and sale agreed percentages. The true magic is these 4 columns here, ladies and gentlemen. You see, Adam, if you add up on each line, horizontal row, you add up the exchange percentage and the withdrawn percentage, they all add up to 100%. You just confirm that?
Yeah.
Lovely. You see, a property will only leave an estate agent's books if she exchanges or withdraws. So therefore, in the last 2 years, let's just do this. In the last 2 years, in the postcodes mentioned, we'll use Flint and Cook as an example, 964, which is 669 and 295, 964 properties have left Flint and Cook's books, of which 669 have exchanged contracts, which means if you put your house on the market with Flint Cook, you will have a 69.4% chance of shifting your house, getting moved, and the agent getting paid, which is very powerful because you can now say, because the average in the town is 60.88. So let's do that. 69.4 divided by 60.88. Flint and Cook can say this statement. If you put your house on the market with Flint and Cook, you have a 13.9% greater chance of moving home than the average Hereford agent. That's pretty powerful stuff. But hold on a second, Adam. There is someone here, Andrew Morris, has got an even better figure. Let's just have a look at their figures. 73.33 divided by 60.88. Oh, hold on. Divided by 60.88. Now, Andrew Morris can say you have a 20.4% greater chance. This is, if you're on the sofa and you're trying to persuade someone, you've sold lots of houses. If an agent said you've got a 20.4% greater chance of moving home with me, you've got to sit up and listen, aren't you?
No, it's going to be humongously important to the decision-making process, absolutely. And you can learn a lot about, ultimately how realistic is the pricing that comes in is probably a big factor here, isn't it? Ultimately.
And the marketing of the properties. But we are going to look at all that in a bit. But again, let's just have a look. We won't, we'll let the numbers do the talking. We're not here to point fingers at the low numbers, but let's just put some praise on. Stoke, Hill and Walsh, 76.8. These are tremendous numbers. Sunderland's and Thompson's, 74%. Your sales, your new instructions are dropping. You need to be using data like this to really help you get your properties over the line. Or more importantly, get called out. So you're solving problem number one, and then solving number problem two is losing it to the competition. I'm amazed by the wide range of numbers here. As you go down, the numbers really do drop off a treat, okay? And that's what drags that average down. But in the top agents, those are some exceptional numbers. And I must praise all the agents, the top bigger agents in Hereford, at their success at that. That is really, really good. Right. Let's move on and look at your fall throughs. The average is 24.8. Is there anyone who's doing sub in the teens? So again, Jackson Property, really good. Connell's, 18.6, really good. So you're not losing them on fall throughs, the Connells. What you are doing is that you're losing them because 4 out of 10 of the homes you put on the market are leaving unsold. So again, is that an area? Again, my advice is are the valuers doing the vendor reductions, the vendor management, or do you go off into witness protection and leaving little negs to do it? Again, they trusted you to put your house on the market, so you should be the one that does the vendor management. Okay, let's have a look. Anyone? That's quite nice and tight. We've got Chancellors at 31. So again, is that an area of something you could potentially look at in terms of your fall throughs? Let's look at price changes. Who has got the average is 40% of properties get price reduced. Who is big numbers? So 51 Glass House, you're reducing over sorry, 1 in 2 houses you're putting on the market, you're reducing the price on. And we've got some low numbers here. 31's quite nice. Watkins Thomas. Okay, and yeah, they're decent. They're decent. Who's at 62? Chancellors, we've just done that. So again, where are you? Where are you on that? Or should you be more realistically pricing in? Well, I tell you what, that's a great segue into who's overvaluing. Okay, let's go and have a look. Okay, so what have we got here? Whenever a property comes on the market, 20EA has an automated valuation model, a bit like a Valpal figure for every one of your listings. They have one for every house in the UK, and then they compare that against what you put the house on the market for. And it looks here that you're nice and tight, and there's no one really here. Chances a little bit at 2.28 are overvaluing the property. So Watkins are not overvaluing, Flint and Cook 0.53. That's quite tight. There's nothing, if we went to one of the London suburbs, they would all be at about 6, 7, 8%. So, but then the next screen here is what price did you achieve on the exchange from the original asking price? And Flint and Cook got 3.86% less than the original asking price. And we've got stuffs in the fours there as well. Now, naturally, what you would do there is take one percentage from the other and get a net figure, but people aren't big fans of percentages. So therefore, what we're looking at here is this. If everybody put on a £400,000 house, what would each achieve for it? And the one that sticks out like a sore thumb is Andrew Morris. Andrew Morris achieved £3,952, according to 20EA, more than the average agent in Hereford. So if you were up against another agent and they were charging an extra £700 more, you could say, well, okay, who's the cheapest estate agent? The one who charges you the lowest fee or the one that gives you more money in your pocket? Because with me, even after I take off that 700 quid, you're still 3,200 quid better off. And here's your proof. Again, you sell lots of houses. If someone could prove to you that they get an extra 3,700 pounds in your back pocket, you wouldn't mind paying an extra 500, 700 quid, would you?
Absolutely. I'm the easiest person in the world to win over with data, Chris. There's no two ways about that. But that's a stark figure, isn't it, when you do the comparisons?
Yeah, and look, Stoke Hill, 5,500. Your listings are slipping, your sales are slipping. This is a way round you to get back on this. Okay, so that's really
Marketing
good.
gold. Yeah, absolutely.
Is good. Right. Okay, so we're nearly there. Right. How long does a house take to sell? On average, 90 days. New instruction to sale agreed, and 111 days from sale agreed to completion. You've got Andrew and Morris who are taking 66 days, 76 days with Williams, 82 days with Stooks. And again, you just go down here. How long is it taking? Flint and Cook, who are the big agents, 78 days. And then how long is your sales progression taking? You can see here. So you can see there, SSTC to completion, 101 days, which is 10 days quicker than the average. And we'll just go down there. And you can see how the different numbers appear. So
Well, that's going to
again,
be especially relevant for anybody who's selling an ex-rental property, isn't it? For example, because I mean, there, for example, Andrew Morris can say they're what 40 days faster, pretty much.
yeah,
That's going to
106.
save you 40 days of council tax bills, etc., 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 mortgage payments, and all the rest of it. It's not going to be a small amount of money. It's going to be 1,500 quid or more potentially.
Again, some of these are the posh agents. So again, they're going to take longer to sell those houses. They always do. Let's go look at the rental market. And Belvoir in number one. So what we've got to do is, so it looks like Belvoir had a slight slippage there of of their rental book because this is new instructions for the last 5 years. And what we do know is that new properties coming on the market, I know most of these are going to be relets, have a direct relationship to what your rental portfolio is. So it looks like from the 2020s, you were at late teens, you're now hovering around the 10%. So your market share has drifted slightly. That is in line with most agents, and it's because of these swines here. Open rent. You see, look, open rent in 21 was around 5%. It's now at 10. Now that is quite low compared to nationally. Nationally, they're around 18 or 19%. And this is the killer bit, Adam, is in the last 3 years, 51.2% of the homes that open rent have put on the market for rent were previously on the market with a high street agent.
It's some cannibalization, isn't it?
You were all running around like headless chickens with purple bricks. That it's open rent. And again, the Renters' Right Act is such an opportunity. Are you embracing it? Let's go and look at arena lettings.
I don't think there's been a time, Chris, when an agent has added anywhere near as much value as they're going to add in the coming few months,
Too right.
realistically. And it's just going to be communicating that to people effectively.
And some of them in groups deciding how much to charge their landlords for sending the stuff out within notice. I mean, come on, guys.
Yes.
Right, arena lettings. That's quite spiky. I don't believe there's a university in Hereford. Might be wrong. But okay, let's go and look at Flint and Cooks. Nice growth there. Slight drifting off. Again, could that have been an acquisition? Don't know. Cobb Amos. Okay. Oh, we got a spike there. No, those spikes. Normally we have the spikes in October or November on towns. Sunderland's and Thompson's. Growth, well done, Sunderland and Thompson's. Diamond Lettings. What's that? That's a huge jump. Is that an acquisition? Don't know. Open Rent, we've already done. Connells. Northwood. Wow, that's a big jump. What's happened there? Is that an acquisition? That does look like an acquisition. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. If you just have a quick look on, go to Google and just type in Northwood's Hereford acquisition. Just see if they've bought something, because that is a massive, huge glass house. Oh, that looks pretty big as well. Was that an acquisition?
Yeah, Belvoir Hereford was acquired by Northwood Hereford. There we go, joining forces 6 months ago.
There you go. So did Northwood buy Belvoir or Belvoir buy the bulk of North?
It says on the Belvoir announcement that Belvoir was acquired by Northwood.
That does answer. And when was that again?
And that post is from 25th of September 2025.
So okay, so that's you go. So look, hold on a second. Look, there you go. Belvoir stopped September '09. Belvoir and Northwood, all part of the property franchise group. So again, we didn't spot that. So that is very much in line with, there you go. So it looks like they are the dominant agent. I used to work for Belvoir as their national recruiter manager. So a real soft spot for those guys and girls. Okay, just have a whiz through these. Okay, there we go. Okay. What I'd like to do is just spend the last few minutes just looking at some of the marketing of these agents, okay? So let's start off with Flint Cook, okay? Let's go and have a look. Because again, we said, Adam, that this, I want you to look at it through the eyes of someone who put, you buy and sell properties all the time. I want you to just talk to me about, let's just have a look and just see. So here we go. Flint and Cook listing. We're looking for maintenance contractors. Happy Easter. Listing. New homes. Listing. 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 Will putting your listings attract more listings?
Potentially.
Yeah, if someone wanted that house, but just generally you're putting listings on.
But it gets to be wallpaper fairly quickly, doesn't it, realistically?
You might as well change the logo to Rightmove here. There you go. Oh, look, we can all go and join them. There you go. Apply. Good. Right, let's move on. Let's just see what else. Okay. Watkins Thomas. Listing. Thinking about, that's a promo. Listing. Yeah.
I guess they put themselves in a bit of a position, Chris, because everybody kind of pushes it as part of the added value of the package. Oh, it goes on our social media, and then the inevitable, we've got XX followers or whatever. So the vendor is expecting to see it.
I've got no issue with putting listings on, but again, listings aren't going to get you more listings unless they want that.
It's wallpaper.
Okay,
quickly.
Let's be honest. If it was a unicorn property, a 4-bedroom cottage with 10 acres with views over the open countryside and a lake, that's a unicorn property. But when there's probably 30 or 40 3-bedroom semis on the market, we all don't need another one, do they? Right, let's go and have a look let's go and see who else we've got. So we've done that one. Right, okay. Did we do Watkins Thomas? Yes, we did. Andrew Morris. Listing. Oh, video. Oh, let's have a look. Okay, so classic walk around with a video with the lift music. Better than the other two, though.
Yeah.
Introducing a beautifully presented 4-bed detached cottage. With easy access to the city.
I tell you here and now, ladies and gentlemen, the 3 answers to your questions, your problems, being called out to more, losing it on vowels, on overvaluing your cheap fees and getting them sold, because it all starts with the first problem, Adam, doesn't it? You've got to be called out to sort, is the first answer is always presenter-led video tours. I like this lady. I'd like to see a bit more of her at the start. Let's have a look.
Is the close proximity to the River Lug, and reassuringly, the property has never flooded since it was built in 1811. In touch with the Andrew Morris team today.
There as well, straight away. Mention the river, but no flooding.
Yeah, that's good.
Upside, no downside.
I would like to see her at the start with the property over the shoulder. Hi, welcome to whatever River Cottage. Let me show you around this lovely home. That presenter-led, and as you're walking round, I would get the lady to do a talk over. Okay, I really would, because again, there's just a little bit too much music. But I tell you what, it's Andrew Morris, much better than everyone else. Let's go and have a look. Listing, listing. Oh, no, no. Look what we sold. Listing, listing. Please, let's see the lady again.
There's your glow, there's your glow, there's your spark. Your light.
No lady in that one. I'm telling you now, if you want a unique selling point, do a presenter-led video tour on every one of your listings. And if you say you haven't got the time for it, I did this on stage. I filmed a property tour in 3 minutes and edited it in 3 minutes on my laptop in front of 100 people. It can be done quickly and easily without any much hassle. It is a great unique selling point, because at the moment, I'm sorry, yeah, okay, we've got the lady with the river cottage. If you're one of the other agents and you want to beat Andrew Morris, do them on every single one. But I really do like the way she does portray herself. Right, let's go. We've just got Jackson Property. Let's go and have a look at them. Oh.
Hello everybody, Lavina here from Jackson Property, and today we're at Chartist Gate, which is a beautifully presented 3-bedroom detached property in the peaceful and popular village of Wimperton. The ground floor accommodation briefly comprises an opening entrance hall into an open plan.
This is absolutely bang on. She's walking and the voice is still going, and they're walking around with the video. This is exceptional.
A kitchen diner with integrated appliances, onto a utility room with a downstairs WC and a garden room leading out to the rear garden as well. There is a good sized lounge with a lovely log burner fireplace and brick surround feature. Upstairs you have 3 bedrooms. Master bedroom is a fantastic size with an ensuite bathroom, and there is also a family bathroom upstairs as well. Driveway to the front of the property. Give us a call to get booked in for a viewing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So, oh, there's a lady again. I'd like to see her a bit closer to start off with, then zoom out. Whoever's doing the filming. So you've got a picture of the person. You can do a quick zoom out, and off we go. Here we go.
Hello everybody, Lavina here from Jackson Property, and today
Lavinia, is that, apologies. Look, have a clip on microphone, please. They're at 20 quid from Amazon. So you don't get that.
I'm at Yview, which is a 2-bedroom detached cottage located on Bulls Hill, which is just above the village of Walford, outside the market town of Ross-on-Wye. Windows surrounding and doors opening out, showing up across the front of the property, allowing further parking and a turning area at the end as well.
Actually, I think she has got a microphone. I just think it was just a boomy room. I'm liking this, Adam.
You'll see the front of the property enjoys all
Look at that.
views. There is some garden space at the bottom here, and it is all very tiered on different levels.
Yeah, like that.
Or many other uses that you
Find that beautifully.
Yeah, liking that. Oh, congratulations. Okay.
So today's property introduction is number 22 Haydock Avenue, located out at Bobblestock. It's a brilliant 2-bedroom starter home or investment, this one. Come round and we'll have a look. So you've got nice front area here with some blue slate as well. Coming into an entrance hall section, there's a utility bathroom here with shower.
Yeah, love this. Love this. If anyone else, Brent, if you want my opinion, because this is my daytime job, is I help agents to get more people to call them out. I might be if you've got the time, film it twice. One in portrait, so for your instas of this world, but try also in landscape as well, because again, especially properties with the older generation, tellies are left to right, not up and down. But really good. I'm liking this. Okay, have we got any more? Let's just have a look. Have we done Jack? I think we've done all 4. Did we do Andrew Morris? Yes. Flint and Cook? Yes. Did we do Andrew Morris? I think we did. Did we do?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're liking Jackson's. Right, okay. What I want to do is I want to show you something else which really does, if you want the answers to be called out to more valuations, because the first one is presenter-led video tours on all of your properties. The second one is this. Adam, you used to be an estate agent and someone found out you're at this party and you're talking to some random couple you just met 3 minutes ago, and the question always comes out is, what do you do for a living? And you say estate agent. What is the question they always ask back? You're an agent.
How's the market like?
How's the market? Can you remember earlier in the show I said that by talking about the local property market, people will see you as the agent, the authority, and there's nobody here talking about the property market. I want to show you some examples, and I think one that's quite close geographically is Cavendish in Chester, and this is a fantastic agent that you should follow. Definitely has all the listings. Okay. But we can also, so you got your listings here, they're doing stuff like this, like the top 100 street names.
Ah.
Okay. Okay. And then they're also, so here's some cuddly stuff. There you go. There are 79 homes called Easter Cottage. Nice. Here we go. Looking at the UK property market.
Nicely branded.
Yeah, okay. Got your property tours. Here we go. Chester, 2 beds and 3 bedroom homes. Is the gap between really stopping people moving home? So this is talking about the Chester property market. This is what Savills have done for 3 decades. Talk about the local property market. And it's full of information. Someone's going to say, you know, if you're in your 20s, you're going to say, this is too wordy. But this is attracting landlords, because landlords are business people and they love the data. You know, this is very detailed stuff. A 2-bedroom home in Chester sits at £1,319 per month. This is what people want to read. Then we've got a little bit of a podcast, which is nice. Listings, walk video tours. This is one of the best estate agents in the UK. Are those JDG Gallagher in Lancaster? You want to be doing that. You need a great mix of talking about the property market and your listings and just being relevant. And the third one, before we go, is get involved in local community groups and comment on everything, because people will love that for you. Right, okay.
Great.
If you are a Hereford estate agent and what I've said is of interest and you want to find out about being called out to more valuations or beating your competitors, please do give me a shout. If you are a Hereford agent and you want some scripts on how to how to beat cheap fees or overvaluing, if you text the word free scripts to my mobile number on WhatsApp or text, I will send you 15 scripts. And I won't ring you up afterwards. I won't follow it up. I'll just send it and be damned. Text the word free scripts to the following number: 07950 147 572, and I will send you the scripts on how to beat overvaluing and how to beat cheap fees. Final words with you, Adam.
Well, some great offers there and some fantastic content there, Chris, for everyone to learn from. I think one of the things I'd take away from all of that is some of the great stuff in there was the personal branding and introducing yourself, and as you correctly said, putting that up front in your video content, not being frightened of the camera, considering who your audience is when you talk to them, because ultimately you're always doing that when you're trying to put a listing together. What does your buyer look like? That's one of the questions ultimately that you're going to answer, and all the rest of it. And then the objection handling throughout the process, but the soft objection handling, I'm a big fan of that. If you can get that done up front, you'll find, I think, that your stats will follow ultimately.
Excellent. Thank you for your time today on the show. It is exceptional. And thank you for watching the show. Next week we'll be back for week 14 of the UK Property Market Stat Show. Let's wave goodbye, Adam. See you on.